On this episode of the Political Playbook, racing into war. Why F1 pulled out of the Middle East Grand Prix. Welcome back to the Political Playbook, the sub-series under the Alanyzing podcast umbrella, where sports meets power, policy, and politics. I'm your host, Alan Solorio, here on episode 2 of TPP. Episode 2 of TPP, why Formula 1 canceled its races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia this April. 2 Grand Prix events gone. And if you think that's a scheduling disappointment for motorsport fans, think again, because the region tells you everything about the most dangerous geopolitical spot on the planet right now. So back in March, Formula 1 announced that due to ongoing situation in the Middle East region, the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix did not take place in April, as we know. As time recording May, they did not happen. The race at the Bahrain International Circuit was scheduled for April 10th to the 12th, and the Jeddah Kamichi Circuit in Saudi Arabia the following weekend, both were canceled. The result was basically like a month break with no competitive on-track action through the entirety of April, a large hole in the sport that normally races like in the F1 season is mostly race every weekend from March to December. F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali stated that, I quote, "While this was a difficult decision to take, it is unfortunately the right one at this stage considering the current situation in the Middle East." End quote. The decision was driven by safety concerns with the situation in the region deemed too unstable for the races to go ahead. Rescheduling wasn't really an option as the calendar is already tightly packed, and then trying to find a new location in that condensed amount of time, bruh, it would be a logistics nightmare. And then add on to the fact that there's we have no idea how the situation was going to develop. No idea, so that's why they canceled it. But what exactly is happening in the region? Well, on February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched joint military operations against Iran, codenamed Operation Epic Fury. The opening strike killed Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, and triggered hundreds of retaliatory missiles and thousands of drones from Iran across the entire Middle East. The Trump administration offered different explanations of starting the war, from preempting the Iranian retaliation against U.S. assets, to destroying Iran's missile capabilities to prevent Iran from building a nuclear weapon, and to achieve regime change that they deemed evil and corrupt. The strikes followed the failure of indirect negotiations in February on a new nuclear agreement. The mediating Omani foreign minister had stated significant progress was being made, but President Trump said he was not thrilled with the talks. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, but the races are not in Iran, so why is this bothering the races? Well, Iran launched ballistic missiles at multiple Gulf states in retaliation. A missile struck the U.S. Navy 5th Fleet Service Center in Bahrain. Strikes were confirmed in Israel, hitting residential areas in Tel Aviv. Iran targeted Bahrain's capital, Manama, Kuwait International Airport, Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and U.S. bases in Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE. The U.S. State Department issued a Depart Now advisory for 16 Middle Eastern countries, including Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE. It wasn't a travel warning. It was basically the government telling people to get out if you want to live. So it was serious. Using our logical brains, you just couldn't simply have F1 races, okay, right now in that region, with thousands of fans, of teams, broadcasters, and other staff, working in the country that is actively under missile attack. Very unethical and dangerous. And that's just playing around. But let's get real, bro. No, it was a correct decision. In the last few weeks, however, U.S., Iran, and Israel agreed to a 2-week ceasefire just 1 hour before Trump's deadline to escalate the conflict expired. Tehran agreed to temporarily reopen the Strait of Hormuz, while Pakistan's leadership played a key mediating role in brokering the deal. Talks are set to begin in Islamabad, with Iran's 10-point peace plan on the table, which includes lifting sanctions, a war loss fund, a potential U.S. troop withdrawal from the Gulf, and recognition from Iran's right to enrich uranium in exchange for a pledge not to build nuclear weapons. So we discussed the war and how that's affecting the races. What do the drivers and the teams think about this? Well, I tried to get clips of the quotes, but I couldn't find any. I think they mostly were all on paper, but here are some from the drivers. George Russell, I said his name is so weird. George Russell, a British driver for Mercedes, and he's also the chairman of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, stated that, I quote, ultimately, I think all of us trust in F1 and the FIA to make the right decision. It's going to be changing daily, I'm sure, of course. It's kind of outside of our hands. It's trusting the guys at the top to make the right decision. And if we don't, I'm sure there are plan Bs in place. But we're not asking, and we trust they're on it. Carlos Sainz, Spanish driver for Williams, stated, I quote, my honest opinion, I think F1 and FIA are a lot better informed about what's going on with the context they have in the Middle East and in the world than what 22 drivers can know or do. I think we are at the mercy of what the top manager of sports decides to do, and I'm pretty confident they will make the right decision when it's the moment to make the decision. Kimi Antonelli, Italian driver for Mercedes, stated more empathetic comments, saying his thoughts were the ones that are suffering from the situation and that safety needs to be prioritized. He also added that FIA and F1, he's pretty sure they will do the right thing. Perhaps one of the most famous drivers ever, Lewis Hamilton, British driver for Ferrari, stated that, I quote, the fact is, we don't have a seat at the table. We do engage with FIA and F1 more often, but we are not stakeholders, end quote. With this 5-week break, the drivers didn't really have a break, you know. They were just still in the team's facilities and to prepare for round 4 in Miami. In round 4 in Miami, you know, getting a little bit from the political and actual into the race, Kimi Antonelli ended up winning his 3rd Grand Prix race in a row. He is the first driver in Formula One history to win his first 3 career races from pole position, a feat achieved at age 19. Damn. Making him the youngest driver to lead the World Drivers' Championship. I think he has 100 points right now. And Mercedes is obviously leading, but hats off to Kimi, bro. At 19, he's doing all this. I don't know how Toto Wolff found him, the principal owner for Mercedes. I don't know how he found him, but he found him somewhere, and bro is killing it right now. I think I didn't expect Mercedes to be this good with all the changes they made. I don't know if anyone else did, but I did not. And somehow him, you know, George won the first race in Australia, and then these last 3 races, all Kimi. And George has been podium or he's been barely outside the top 3. So Mercedes is killing it. Kimi especially. I think one of the other noteworthy things was driver of the day was Max Verstappen of Red Bull, who was second in the starting grid and ended up placing 5th, which, you know, you probably think it's not impressive. Like, how are you starting grid second and up to 5th? Well, at one point, he was 13th place. Max Verstappen, 13th place. Because he spinned out on the first lap, and that got him to 10, and then I don't know what happened, but then he ended up in 13th, but he went all the way up back to podium positions and then to 5th. So from that standpoint, it's impressive, and that's why he won. Another note was my boy Charles Leclerc of Ferrari had an unlucky day. My gosh, he was a race leader for quite a few laps. Then Ferrari had like a miscommunication with him about pitting him in lap 22 because they were going to change his tires. And he was in pole position. And they wanted to change his tires because, you know, the forecast was that the rain was going to happen. It never came. And I guess Ferrari wanted to get ahead of it or whatever, but they didn't tell him. And then he was obviously got mad at the position because they took away his pole position. And he said, I quote, next time you make a decision, please speak with me as well. I am here. End quote. Ouch, bro. What is Ferrari doing? What are they doing to Charles? Why don't you tell the man about your strategy or about what you're doing? You just let him out in the cold. And now he lost his pole position. It was just one of the things I was like, bro, not a good day for Charles. But anyways, that put him back. That's just starting off. That put him back a few positions, right? But he was still on podium. He was still around there. But then on the last lap, he spinned out, which placed him to 6th. But to make it even worse, after like official positions, he dropped to 8th place because he had a 20-second penalties that the FIA decided to place on him, which I quote was because he was skipping a number of corners that he wasn't supposed to be on. And then he was driving, another I quote, he was driving an unsafe car after spinning and hitting the wall on the final lap. That's why they took him out from a tough day for my boy. Tough day. But he'll bounce back. You know, he's been doing well. I thought he was going to do well because the first 2 races, he was in podium position. If I'm I'm pretty sure I'm not talking out of my, go 100% confirm that. Australia, he was like 3rd place. And then I think also in China, he was also 3rd place. Oh no, he was 4th place. But he was around there, right? And then I don't know what's going on over here in these other situations, but I thought he would get better. And this was just a bad day for him. So I feel bad for my boy. He'll bounce back though. Him, Piastri, and Checo Perez, those are my boys. They'll make it back. Speaking of the boys, the McLaren boys, that's another no, I think, finished on the podium with Lando Norris being 2nd and Oscar Piastri being 3rd place, respectively. I think they're bringing back the winning like last year, okay? Oscar, the first 2 races, he did not complete them because of a crash in Australia, and then both of them had electrical issues in China, him and Lando. But these last 2 races that he started and finished, he finished in the podium of the race, Mr. Piastri. Okay, he's coming back. I think he's coming back. I'm praying for my boy. Let's go. I think he should have won last year. He didn't. We all know he didn't, but we'll see how this continues. But going back to the political side of it, I think here's a takeaway from my perspective on the political side. It was the correct decision, all right, to cancel it because it was too dangerous and unethical to even attempt to travel there and to reschedule. Like, it would have been impossible to figure out which countries would actually be willing and doing all the traveling in under a few weeks. Like, it would have been a logistics nightmare. What is interesting, though, is how crazy it became, like, that region. You know, it was safe enough, it was stable enough to host these international events, and then now it's too dangerous for diplomats, let alone drivers. So it was just cool. And then, like, it was safe, you know, they canceled it, and then the race came back, and we had a great race. So you just got to do the safe things, and the race will go on. So it was all good. The war between U.S., Israel, and Iran has killed thousands, you know, disrupted the global oil supply, and left the world questioning. The canceled Grand Prix is just the part that made the sports headlines. I'm Solorio from the Political Playbook. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you on the next episode. See ya!